Hello again, value drivers, all the fans out there from Idea to Value. It's Nick Skillicorn again here with another live video for you guys today. And as you can see from the title of the video, today we're going to be talking about how do I prevent other people from stealing my ideas. Now, believe it or not, this is actually one of the most common questions that I get asked from people who are interested in creativity, and especially people who are just starting out on their innovation journey, because they're worried that they've got this amazing idea, but they don't want to share it with the world just in case a bigger competitor, an already established company, goes out there and steals their idea. So I'm going to be covering a couple of topics today. The first one is, what are the legal ways that you can protect your ideas? The second thing to cover is how those things work. How does the actual law protect you, if it protects you at all? And then the third thing is whether or not it's actually a good idea to protect your ideas in the first place at all. What's the point in doing it? So the first thing to talk about, as I promised, is what are the different ways that you can protect your ideas? Now, the first thing to understand is you cannot actually just protect an idea. An idea itself cannot be protected by law. It's just something that's ephemeral, it's something that's in your head, and if it doesn't actually get turned into anything, there's no way to use the law to actually protect it. But once you've actually taken that idea and turned it into something, whether or not that's a physical product or an artistic product, then there are ways to protect that. Now, in the artistic side, there's things like trademarks, which you can use to protect things around the way that your business operates, whether that's the name, the logo, etc. But the most common thing that people use to try and protect their ideas in the artistic sense is copyright. And one of the reasons I'm actually doing this video is I recently wrote an article about changes to copyright that came out recently in the US, where for the first time in 20 years, they're actually releasing new work into the public domain from the year 1923. There'd been this time period since about 1976 when there'd been this halt on new works being released. They extended the lifespan of when work could be copyrightable, and that got extended again in the late 90s. Now that is why there's been this 20-year gap, and it's only recently now, as of the 1st of January 2019, that new public domain works have been available, sometimes from some of the most popular films from 1923, including Safety Last, which has got this iconic black and white movie scene where a man's holding onto a clock tower face. There's other things like Charlie Chaplin, poems by Robert Frost, lots of music, musicals, artwork, books, etc. All of those are now released into the public domain. So when copyright expires, work goes into the public domain. But what does copyright actually do? Well, copyright is a way that you can protect a physical representation of your work. If it's a song, it needs to actually be put into a medium, and that medium means it needs to be either recorded or written down in sheet music or some other representation of that time that you can show, okay, this is a piece of work I've produced. Same with film, it needs to actually be recorded and released. Books need to be published. Artwork needs to be performed. All of those sorts of things need to be physically shown in order for a copyright to actually be viable. It's not just the idea itself, it's actually a representation that goes out there into the world that people can see, touch, feel, whatever it might be. So once you've got that physical representation, what constitutes something being available for copyright? Now, there are certain guidelines, but these will vary across the world in different countries and different states, lots of different recourses, but there needs to be a minimum degree of originality and creativity. And that's usually what's judged as whether or not something can be copyrightable at all. Things like individual parts aren't necessarily copyrightable. So words of the English language aren't by themselves a new original idea that you've come up with, and therefore can't be copyrighted. However, if you put those words together in a unique way, then that can be copyrightable, because that's either a poem, it's a song lyric, it's a piece of dialogue in a play, whatever it might be. But as long as you can prove that you are the first person to put those constituent parts together that is how you can then finally apply for copyright. Now, in most cases, nowadays, copyright is actually done automatically when you publish your work. There were time periods when you had to actually apply for copyright, but nowadays it's a lot more lenient. And then that copyright, if you've proved that it was you who originated this piece of work, in general, depending on where you live, it's different around the world, but in general, the copyright is yours for the days of your life, plus a certain amount of time after your death. Some countries it's 50 years, some countries it's 70 years, it's different country by country, but that gives your family and your estate time to continue benefiting from the artistic work that you've produced. So that's how you might protect ideas from an artistic sense that you have. You can't copyright the ideas themselves, they need to actually be shown to the world, either in a performance or a piece of work that you publish. Now, what about other ideas for businesses? Again, you can't copyright the idea for a business. You actually need to turn it into an innovation and release it out to the world. And this is where a lot of entrepreneurs really get hung up. They think that just because they've got this idea, that it by itself has value. And ironically, the website is called Idea to Value, but that's because you need to take your idea and turn it into something valuable. The idea by itself isn't enough to constitute it being worth it to someone. In fact, I often say to my clients, ideas are priceless because you can't actually put a price on them until you turn them into something. So how do you then get value out of your ideas and your innovations? Well, you need to turn them into something. You need to either release them as physical products, as prototypes. You need to turn them into something that has value to someone else. So either you can create a physical product, you can create a service that someone sees value in, you can create designs for something, but they need to be physically put down onto paper, and then you can use patents to actually protect those. So you can apply for a patent. They're not granted automatically, but you can apply for a patent, and if you can prove that it was yourself who originated the degree of creativity and originality for that new product, that new design, that new way of doing business, whatever it might be, then you can apply for and hopefully get that patent depending on where you live, depending on how the patent system works where you are. Usually that is something that you need to pay for, and it's best practice to actually get lawyers involved to help you through that process. And that comes to the next stage of what I promised to talk about today, which is what do you do once you've got these protections in place? Well, even if you have a copyright and even if you have a patent, that is not going to prevent someone stealing your idea. And that's one of the harshest truths that exists out there for intellectual property and for people wanting to benefit from their ideas and from their innovations and from their creative work. Having a patent and a copyright only gives you the legal recourse to go after someone if they use your work inappropriately. So just in the same way that having police in a country doesn't prevent people from murdering other people or prevent people from breaking into houses, it gives the people who are affected a legal recourse of going after the people who have done them wrong. So if someone does use your copyrighted work in a way that you don't approve of or you have not given them license to, then you can legally go after them. But it doesn't happen automatically. You need to actively go after them, and that can have costs from a legal perspective as well. Just in the same way as patents don't automatically prevent people from copying your work and releasing it under their own name and they're profiting from it, you just then have the legal right to go after people who do use your ideas in the wrong way. But that's the difference. You need to then go through the legal steps, which again quite often requires lawyers, quite often requires hoping that the court is going to side with you, and most challenging of all, be able to go after people based on the fact that they're hopefully in the same jurisdiction as you. If someone who is not bound by the same legal laws as you copies your idea, so for example, you might have someone in China who sees a design that you've produced and produces their own version, well, they'll be bound by the copyright and protection laws in China. They won't necessarily be bound by the copyright and protection laws of your own country. So therefore, you need to hope that the people who are going to respect your copyright will respect it and are not going to be bound by any other boundaries. So I've talked about how you protect your ideas. I've now talked about how you go after people if they steal your ideas. And the third thing is whether or not it's actually a good idea to prevent people stealing your ideas in the first place. Because people are so hung up nowadays on protecting their idea that they never actually even go out there and release it. People are so afraid of people stealing their idea that they never actually finish that piece of work or release that business or even go and try something, produce a minimum viable product. The fact of the matter is, if you have an idea, the only way to get value out of it is by doing it. And the fact of the matter is as well, most companies are not going to be bothered trying to steal someone's idea until they've seen it work. So if you can prove that it works, you will have already gained some benefit for yourself by either releasing it as a business, proving its value to customers, and getting some benefit yourself. And then hopefully during that journey, protecting yourself in certain ways, either through copyright or through patents or whatever it might be. But the main thing is you need to have proven value exists in that idea in the first place by releasing it. So if you're afraid that a Samsung or an Apple or an Alibaba or an Amazon or something is just going to steal your idea the minute you talk about it, you're probably kidding yourself. These companies have got their own teams of researchers and engineers out there working on things. And of course, they do go out there and look for inspiration, but they get inspired by success. It's very easy to talk about ideas. And the way I'm going to prove it to you right now is I'm going to give you an idea that is worth approximately $17 trillion. And that number might be off by 10 trillion or so. But a while back, I looked at what is the overall energy market for the world, and it's in the trillions of dollars. Now, when I was much younger, when I was a teenager, I had this unbelievably good idea. And it was a way to effectively create perpetual motion. And I'm going to share it with you right now. Effectively, you know how when you have a magnet, it'll repel another magnet of the same polarity. I'm sure polarity isn't the right word, but of the same north or south configuration. Well, if you were to take a disk and arrange magnets in that disk at an angle, and then place an exact copy of that on top of it, the disks wouldn't touch because the magnets would repel each other, but the fields would also repel each other horizontally as well as vertically. And in a disk configuration, that disk would begin to spin and spin and spin and spin. Now, I didn't know much about magnets, but I had this idea and I thought, oh wow, this could create perpetual motion for free. Now, if a company out there wants to take this idea and create a perpetual motion device and solve the world's energy crisis, by all means, please do it. But the challenge is, the idea by itself, as I've just shown, has no value. I might say it's a $17 trillion idea. Do I have $17 trillion? No, because I was not able to actually do anything with this idea. You actually need to take the time and produce something. And don't get so hung up on having one individual amazing idea and so hung up on protecting it by not releasing it to the world that it prevents you working on any of your other ideas as well. It's only through taking the time to iterate, to experiment, to try new things that you're able to go out there and release multiple things and improve them over time, to experiment, to refine things, and to actually end up delivering something that is valuable to the world, that you're actually able to innovate and be creative. So I hope that's given you an introduction into how you can prevent people stealing your ideas and whether or not it's worth worrying about whether or not someone's going to steal your idea in the first place. Remember to like this video if you found it interesting, share it with someone if you found it interesting. Please follow me and subscribe to get all of my upcoming videos. And remember, most importantly, go to www.ideatovalue.com right now, sign up for our free newsletter, for our free membership, and you'll never miss out on some of the world's best, most scientifically accurate insights on getting innovation and creativity to work for yourself, for your family, for your organization, and for your team. Right, that's it for today. I hope you found it interesting, and I look forward to speaking again with you soon.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked it, please like, share and subscribe, and leave me a comment about what you thought and what you'd like to see more about. If you want to take your creativity and innovation capabilities to the next level, then invest in yourself with the premium training only available at ideatovalue.com. These exclusive training modules have all been put together by me, Nick Skillicorn, and have been used by thousands of artists, innovation leaders, and CEOs to become better at understanding the source of their creativity and executing on their innovation ambitions. And there is no risk to you, as they are backed by our money-back guarantee. Now, don't forget to go out there and make your ideas a reality. See you again soon.